Hi everybody! If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, please go check that out because it is also very important, but it's not necessary in order to watch this video, so you can go watch that in your own time. I would like to focus on the things that we consume, and I don't just mean what we eat, but also how we eat, how often we eat. If you do enjoy my videos, please make sure to subscribe. I really appreciate the support, and please share if this resonates with you. This may be weird because I'm talking about eating, but I'm gonna start off with fasting. In my head, it's not consuming any energy for a specific period of time. It depends if we're doing extended, intermittent. I'm sure there's others, but those are the two main ones that I'm gonna discuss, because it's not just about not eating. You also can't have liquids that have calories to them. So that's why they say if you're fasting, it's water-based, or you can have herbal teas because those don't have any calories, any energy. So intermittent fasting is basically not consuming anything for a period of time every day, which is usually 16 hours. On the other hand, extended fasting, it can go on for more than a day. And I think there are also different ways to do this, but I know of water fasts where you literally just drink water for that period of time. That's like the main differences, just so that you get an idea. The reason it's not consuming any energy is because one of the benefits of fasting is that it forces your body to use its stored energy sources, which I guess is good for weight loss if that is one of your goals when you're doing this. But not only that, when you are not consuming any energy, your body goes into this fasted state where it is then able to clear out any damaged cells. This process is called autophagy. It is very important in maintaining a healthy lifestyle, because when these cells that are damaged or dysfunctional remain in our body, that can contribute to toxicity and potentially cancer. But there are many benefits to fasting. I've mentioned that it can promote weight loss, but also when you're no longer distracting yourself by constantly being satisfied and pleasured, consuming food constantly, it actually provides you this mental clarity. You don't have these distractions anymore. This can be very beneficial, especially if you're trying intermittent fasting, because then you can get done a lot of things while you're fasting when you have this mental clarity. So if you're experiencing a creative block, this can also give you some clarity. In general, fasting also just builds mental resilience, because the more you're ignoring this feeling of being hungry, you learn that you can feel an emotion without responding to it immediately, which is really good. I think my favorite thing though about fasting is the spiritual aspect. I've never done an extended fast, but in my periods of intermittent fasting, I've always just felt so much closer to God and Source. It's like there's nothing blocking you. Like, this is going hand in hand with that mental clarity. That is why also a lot of religions, especially Islam, they partake in extended fasts annually. And I actually want to start doing that for myself. I want to designate a specific time every year where I do an extended fast, and maybe I will take you guys along with me if I do that. Really, the whole point of it is to just sit with yourself and get closer to God and Source, and I think it's really beautiful to do that. I do, however, want you guys to know that this needs to be a controlled thing. If you are planning on fasting, intermittent, extended, it's not for everyone, basically. It isn't really recommended for pregnant women, people with digestive issues, blood pressure issues, etc. So definitely, if you've got any of those issues, probably consult a healthcare professional before trying. It's definitely something that needs to remain monitored. For extended fasts, you'll want to ease into it before you start the extended fast and ease out of it afterwards. But then also for intermittent fasting, especially if you've never done it before, you'll want to start with 13 hours and then maybe the next day 14 hours, then 15 hours until you reach your 16-hour interval of no eating. If you're going to do intermittent fasting as a woman, you should actually link it with your cycle, because these periods of not eating can actually mess up your hormones a little bit, and this is very important when you're in your menstrual phase. The way that I link it with my cycle is I will fast for 16 hours during my follicular phase. In my ovulatory and luteal phase, I'll keep it 13 to 15 hours of fasting, and then in my menstrual phase, I don't fast. But the way that I try to compensate for that, or still give me some of the benefits, obviously not like weight loss and stuff, but like some clarity and whatnot, is that I'll do like a social media fast when I'm not able to do the food fast. When I'm menstruating, I won't be on social media for 16 hours, which has actually been really amazing. I've been loving it. You have to make sure that it's not just you trying to starve yourself. Intention is so important. If you're doing this, you need to make sure that you have good intentions. So for me, the extended fast would be to connect to God, to connect to the universe. So that would be my intention. You know, you're not doing this just to starve yourself, just to punish yourself or whatever. Other intentions can look like just wanting to cleanse your body of those damaged toxic cells, or maybe you want to work on your mental resilience. There are different intentions that you can put into fasting, and it is very important because otherwise it becomes something toxic. I'm not here promoting any sort of eating disorders. And with extended fasting, there are some requirements. You need to make sure that you've got a support system, because it can, especially for a first time or something, it can be quite overwhelming, very difficult. Maybe you just need support. So telling at least one person that you're doing this. Another requirement is the timing. Timing of doing an extended fast is so important. You have to make sure that it's not at a time like during holidays when you're going to be around family that are making feasts in front of you, you know, or when it's like birthday season. So basically, it has to be around a time where there isn't a lot of events, not a lot of commitments. I also don't think it would be good to do an extended fast when you have, like, let's say exams or presentations or big speeches or anything like that, because, you know, for those kind of things, you want to be fueled, not even just to make it easier for you, but it's also good to have free time to sit with yourself and just embrace everything that comes up during the fast, because you will get a lot of clarity, a lot of ideas, and also this connection to source could bring up some things in you. I mean, I've never done it myself, so I'm not saying any of this out of experience. These are all things that I've heard from other people or from research. The things I learned from my degree is more on the autophagy stuff. So because none of this is from my own experience, I am also just going to take all of these notes that I've learned and use it when I do an extended fast, and then maybe I can give you guys some notes on that. So we'll do like a little update when I try an extended fast. The intermittent fasting stuff, I definitely have felt work for me and I haven't had a problem. So now when you actually end your fast and you start eating again, one of the best diets I recommend taking up is the Mediterranean diet. I'd also like to just say that when you hear the word diet, it shouldn't make you feel restricted. Diet is literally just what you eat. Don't hear this and all of a sudden get scared or something, because I know with eating disorder culture, word diet has become so toxic. But this diet is amazing for many reasons, including that so much research has shown that the Mediterranean diet is so good for you. A benefit of this diet is that it has shown to control blood sugar levels, which is really important in diabetes and overall health, because if you have high blood sugar spikes, that puts a lot of strain on your organs and cells, and it can lead to a lot of damage and toxicity. And because things like vinegar and nuts, which are included in this diet, are really good at controlling your blood sugar. Nutritional studies have shown that when you have vinegar in your meals, nuts in your meals, or like just before a carbohydrate heavy meal, it actually has a significant effect on lowering your blood sugar. It also prioritizes things like fatty fish and olive oil, which are really good for anti-inflammatory purposes. And if you want to know more about that, you can also check out my previous video. I did mention them in that video. But the reason I was emphasizing that this isn't about restriction is because they also prioritize like eating bread and drinking wine with a meal. And it's because this diet, the reason I actually love it so much, like besides the health benefits, it's actually prioritizing connection with your loved ones. So, you know, you're enjoying a glass of wine, you're sharing bread. So it's actually more about connecting with those around you, enjoying your meal, being grateful, having a good time, than it is about restriction. So not only is it beneficial health-wise, but also socially, and I think spiritually. That brings me to talk about whole food eating. I've been back and forth with this idea of only eating whole foods. So that would mean avoiding bread, cheese, ham. And I understand why. It's because the more processed a food gets, probably the less good it is for you. You know, you're straying away from the natural thing. The reason that I won't stick to a whole food diet, like I try to make sure most of my diet is whole food, but I won't cut out things like bread and cheese and whatever, because I actually do think a very beautiful part about being human is being able to craft your own foods and stuff, and also being able to enjoy other people's creations like that. So a way that I would want to try and incorporate that one day, and this is me like verbally manifesting, is, you know, I'll probably make my own breads. I don't know about making my own cheeses, but maybe just support a local cheesemaker, because I think the main issue is like getting your mainstream bread and cheese that are probably not that good because they just want to make profits and stuff. I don't think I could go fully whole food based, because to me that's an amazing part of life, you know, having pizza, pies, like there's so many beautiful nuances to having these. But whole food eating is definitely amazing. Like I'm not trying to put it down or anything, and I do think that that also brings you closer to God because you're focusing on your God-given foods. But I don't know, I enjoy human creativity as well. This diet does also include meat, but there is a hierarchy, you know, there's certain things that you shouldn't eat too much, and that is also what makes it such a cancer prevention diet, because it also does say that you shouldn't eat too much red meat and processed foods as well. And I say this because red meat, particularly processed meats, are class 1 carcinogens, so they contribute to cancer. When it comes to eating meat, I was actually pescatarian. It lasted about 1.5 years. It was about 3 years ago that I stopped. And the main driver of this was because on Instagram, I was constantly seeing just reasons not to support the meat industry. It's very inhumane a lot of the time, the way that they raise and kill the animals. And I also heard that most of deforestation is to make space for cattle farming. And I also just hated the idea that if that had to happen to a human, you know, we'd be able to fight for our right to live and for good quality of life. But these animals don't have that ability. But the thing that made me come back to eating meat was that I live in South Africa, and here the meat industry isn't as inhumane. A lot of it is farm-bred animals that are actually given a proper life, or at least that's what I understand. I'm sure there are still some inhumane parts of it, but I know that it's definitely not as bad here as it is in like America, for example. So many of the plant-based products that are like made to be similar to meat products, obviously they're highly processed in order to resemble a meat product. And I was still consuming these things because I was so used to having meals with meat, so it felt good to like just replace it with something that doesn't have meat, and it would still taste good. So, you know, obviously not as good. I actually realized that that probably wasn't as good for me as I was thinking. So that is also another reason that I feel like for my health, it probably was better to eat the proper thing. But not only that, I learned that physiologically, you also don't get enough minerals and stuff from plant-based diets. I know that there are some really good sources of protein and other minerals from plant-based sources, but for example, I learned that it's either magnesium or zinc. You actually can't really absorb the plant form very well, so you get very little from a plant that has a lot. Your body actually absorbs it easier from animal sources. Basically, near the end, I started seeing a lot of reasons why it's actually good both ways. You know, there are benefits to both sides, and so I decided to go back to it. I'm still really unsure of it all. There's still part of me that wants to go back to it. When I was pescatarian, I always felt so much closer to earth and to God, because it felt like I was cherishing God's creation so much more. But it was really challenging, like not even just about the minerals or whatever, but also especially in South Africa where everyone braais and whatever, it was really difficult to have to tell everyone every time I went to a social event why I don't eat meat, you know. And there would always be a debate. People would respect my choice a lot of the time, but they would always be those people. There are good and bad sides to each. Right now, I'm not at a place to say that one is better than the other. My goal to try and get out of that problem is one day to just have my own sustainable sources of everything. That's literally my whole life goal. I just want all of my resources to be sustainable and either coming from my own hard work or from locals around me. I really do want that kind of environment, but we'll get there. A lot of the foods we also eat are genetically modified, and this isn't me frowning upon genetically modified foods, actually. Yes, there obviously are some cases that people have gone too far with technology. It is capable of being used in the wrong way. People just hear genetically modified and they're like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. But there are so many benefits to it. It is literally a solution to global hunger. The fact that we don't have enough food to sustain the whole human population. Genetically modified foods are addressing that by increasing crop yield. So now we get more out of the same crops, which is really good for this problem. But not only that, also in poverty-stricken areas where people struggle with nutrient deficiencies, they've also been genetically modifying foods so that they can be higher in nutrients. But another thing is, at this point in human development, there is no such thing as a natural food. And this is because since the beginning of agriculture, humans have been breeding plants to select for what they want in a plant. So nothing's natural anymore. I mean, that's not like genetic engineering, but you are selecting the genetics you want. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing. Obviously, there are some bad sides, like people who are trying to make things bigger because that might actually decrease the nutrients in it when you're just focusing on size and not like what's in it. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it honestly depends how people use it. When you see a label that says like not genetically modified or whatever, that doesn't mean it's natural either. It's all about just being aware of the fact that there is good and bad sides to it. So we shouldn't frown on it overall, but definitely keep an eye. I want you guys all to know that diet is really important and you can heal so many things from the inside out. For example, your skin. Just consuming antibacterial foods and anti-inflammatory foods, you can literally heal your acne. And for someone like me who has eczema, consuming certain foods can also help with hydrating your skin. And then also your gut. You can consume foods that are rich in pro and prebiotics. Prebiotics give the bacteria the nutrients they need to grow. Probiotics contain bacteria, good bacteria, which is important for a lot of reasons. And if you would like to know more about that, please check out part 1 because I did discuss that in a lot more depth. Also with your gut, focus on fiber-rich foods, which the Mediterranean diet is also really focused on having. There are also a lot of foods that are really enzyme rich and can help with your digestion because digestion has a lot to do with the enzymes that break down the foods that you're absorbing. An alkaline diet can also be good. I don't necessarily follow this because I just haven't really felt like I need to, but basically high acidity can contribute to more bad bacteria in your gut. So an alkaline diet is really good for maintaining the good bacteria. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful, and if you have any more questions, leave them in the comment section below. If you did enjoy, please subscribe. Love you guys. See you in the next one.